From the Ticats Audio Network, this is a Ticats This Week, built by Turkstra. Whatever your next home project is, build it better with Turkstra. Visit TurkstraLumber.com today.
3 straight wins for the Tiger Cats. They'll go for 4 on Friday when they visit the BC Lions, 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time start. We're all excited about that one. That'll be a nap afternoon and get set for the late game. But, hey, we got to see the Ticats play again the way they're rolling right now. 3 straight wins. Steve Milton, Mike Daly, Luke Tasker, and me, RJ Broadhead, voice of the Ticats. Can't wait for this one, guys. And let's go back to last week's Ticats This Week. Are you convinced at this moment the Tiger Cats are the best team in the CFL? Come on, Luke.
All right, I'll start. No, but it's getting a lot closer. And so Montreal is 1-1-1 over their last 3 games, win, loss, and a tie. You've got a weird triangle of wins and loses with Montreal, Toronto, and Ottawa, and the Ticats, I should say.
Who else has gone 3-0 over the last 3 games? That's it?
Yeah, that's it. Just Earl Hamilton
Winnipeg?
Tabbies. Yeah. They're playing fantastic, and they're not turning the ball away. I mean, how many games could have been won in the first 2 months of the season if turnovers wasn't such a glaring issue? I think I'm sticking with Mike Daly's coined phrase of last week that they are the hottest team right now, and they're fun to watch, and I don't think anyone's excited to play them. And defensively, there's an entirely new spark in the Ticats. So they. Like I said, if you told me if you gave me this option a month ago that they'd be the team that we're looking at now, I'd say it looked like it was impossible for them to turn things around to the extent that they have.
And Winnipeg is pretty hot, but something's really interesting in the CFL rankings. I kind of had to laugh here, guys. I really had to laugh because number 1 is Winnipeg, number 2 is Montreal, number 3 is Edmonton, number 4 is Hamilton. And so you've got 3 of the 4 teams that started 0-4 in the top 4 right now. So it's funny how things can change in a CFL season, and there's still time for the Tiger Cats heading into BC. I want to talk to you guys, and we'll go to you on this, Mike. Fewer turnovers and fewer penalties than the opposition. They hadn't done it all season until these last 3 games. Is it as simple as that? Scott Milanovich has been preaching it. They do it. They win football games. Fewer turnovers, fewer penalties.
Most of the time, yeah. Football is a simple game, and if you make the other team be good, drive the whole field, don't take penalties, keep possession. You always hear a phrase called "earn the right to punt," right? And that's a weird phrase that you don't really understand until you dive deeper, but that's just not that means don't turn the ball over and earn the right to flip the field. And luckily Nick Constantino is doing a great job doing that, and the special teams unit is doing a great job doing that. But what that means is then you're making that offense drive the whole field again, right? So wherever they end up getting that ball, but you keep putting them into their own end, and it's this field position battle. With the turnovers and with the penalties, it kills offensive drives. Anytime you get a penalty on offensive drive, you can pretty much wash that offensive drive out and have to restart again. And when you keep drives alive as a defense taking penalties, it just makes it easier for the other team to get down there and score. So it's really a whole thing of field position when you talk about turnovers and penalties. And it is as simple as that. In a game of football, it's hard to drive the full field and score. And if you help them with turnovers and penalties, then it makes it a lot easier. So the Ticats are doing a great job, and it's just disciplined. And they're not taking those, when they do take penalties, it's a during the play penalty. It's a hold. It's something that is just going to happen by playing hard. It's not what we were seeing at the beginning of the season, where it's those 15-yarders and after the play thing, right, a face mask. Those are the killers. And, obviously everybody's bought in that locker room.
3 straight wins. Steve, were you going to jump in there, Luke?
Well, I love what Mike said about earn the right to punt, and it was almost like, anytime that was happening, it was like almost felt like an offensive win early this season. But if you start an offense all the way backed up, I've often said in the broadcast, RJ, that if you're inside of your own 10, 5-yard line, the only goal of the offensive series is to get 1 first down. You're not thinking in your head, go score a touchdown. Like that's how hard it is to be backed up like that. You have to, your goal is to just earn one first down. And then you want to earn the right to punt. You've earned that right to punt. You want to maintain that. Then you want to earn the right to kick a field goal, and you never want to give it back. You never want to lose a step in that offensive drive. And then once you're in scoring territory, we always track and keep a tab on touchdown percentage in scoring zone. And so it's like the pyramid of an offensive drive. Like, you've earned the right to punt. Now you've earned your field goal. Now can you capitalize and make it 7? And they're better and better at it. Their percentages have gotten better and better as the season goes on. Go ahead, RJ, but Daly, that's a great point.
A lot of critics for the Tiger Cats early in the season, and sometimes that can galvanize a team and bring players together. Now they're on a roll. Steve, you're around the team a lot, not only at games before and after, but at workouts as well. Are you seeing a different attitude with the players?
It's unspeakable. I mean that in a good way. It's indescribable in a way. And it's not just them, but it's the whole building, and that creates a symbiotic relationship, because that means everybody you see, the ticket sellers, everybody's happy, and that, they run into the players all the time. They take them, all the PR people have to take them out to special events. Everybody is happier and up, and it helps them with the practice. Like today's was, like, it was raucous. They did a lot of things, again, which they never really practiced a lot before. They're practicing a lot of jump ball now because, A, they got confidence in 2 guys that never played high school football that are now showing that they can play, and that's Giovanni Robinson and Shemar Bridges, both of whom they're starting to throw high balls to because they're more confident. They're more confident about everything. And to amplify your point, that feeling, Luke, of winning the punt, and Mike said it too, winning a punt is now enhanced by the sense of belief. Why? Because their defense is doing something with that field position, right? And they were not doing something with that. I mean, that defense for the longest time, including last year, they were sometimes at their worst in the shadow of either goalpost. They would allow the long drives. That may happen a little bit now. You get a lot of bend, not break. I thought they bent a little too much in the Argo game, but they didn't break. And that's what Jones forces you to do in a variety of ways. And you can see the belief coming there. It came on special teams before it came on defense, and now it's on defense. And I think the offense always had it, as long as Bo is doing what we said from the top, is not giving the ball away, and he is not. Clearly, his stats the last 3-4 games are unbelievable.
Yeah, there's one stat that really jumps out at me with that. Over the last 3 games, Tiger Cats have turned the ball over twice, but haven't allowed any points off of those turnovers. Right. And they've taken the ball away 8 times and have scored 25 points. So really the turnover takeaway ratio as far as points is 25-0 over the last 3 games. Mike, do you think that changes the way that teams game plan for the Tiger Cats, in the sense they were making mistakes and kind of beating themselves at times earlier in the season? They're not doing that anymore.
No, and a huge credit to Bo and how he's been playing for that reason, because we talked about the beginning, and everybody knows Bo is the phrase gunslinger, right? And he's the one that wants to take the chances downfield and make those plays. But I feel he's still doing that because the numbers he's putting up are ridiculous. And the receivers are helping him out. Early on, we weren't seeing those 50-50 balls, or as Steve mentioned, the jump balls being won. But now, when it's not there, and I think back to the Montreal game at home that they lost, that was the end of Bo forcing it into those double coverage situations where he thought he had a window and could squeeze it in. And now it looks like the ones he's thrown up there, you're like, yep, that's a good throw. And when it's not there, he's very quick to check it down or to move around a little bit to open something else up. So a huge credit to him. And then obviously this defense that Steve had talked about, they are playing with like a newfound confidence where everybody's getting their hands on a ball. Everybody's getting an opportunity to turn the ball over. It's just if they catch it or not. But it's pretty impressive how this turnaround has happened. And I've been a part of teams that we've done really, really well, and I've also been a part of teams that we don't do really well. And when you dig yourself out of the emotional hole that is losing a ton of games, and now you're winning again and you're competing in every single game and playing really well, it's like you are going to have a party every single day, because it is so much more fun in football to win, and in any profession to win, than it is to sit there and lose. It's completely different. It's a different job altogether. It's a different day-to-day lifestyle. It's undescribable on how much fun you have walking into the facility when you are winning and when you're losing.
It happens with the Ticats audio network too. I really enjoyed seeing Luke's competitive side come out. We may have to replace the countertop in the booth, but there's a lot of emotion there in that last game. It was fun, and for the listeners that don't get to see it, Luke is mild-mannered, calm, but you can see that competitiveness when he was a player come out a little bit as a broadcaster. That was fun, Luke.
Yeah, it was a fun game to call, and it turns out that the only thing I have to express myself is to bang on my countertop in front of my microphone as something good or bad happens in the game. But it wasn't that. It is. Oh man. It's just like playing. It's just like watching the game. It's a way more fun broadcast to call a game that's close and that where they're winning, and so it has been fun. These last 3 weeks, the whole city feels the same, right? I mean, it's just a better team to be a part of.
Bo with 31 completions and 362 yards, his most in 9 games, and no turnovers. Steve, is it? If Bo is on and plays like, well, maybe he doesn't have to be that great, but not turn the ball over, is that the key to the Tiger Cats maintaining this success?
I think that's a big part of it. I think they need to make sure that they keep the running game established as well to help him out. And we can debate Bell versus Butler and all of those kinds of things, which I'm sure we will. But yeah, when he had time, and he's just as you're starting to see all of the other good things that he's done in the off season. I mean, we talk about Chad Kelly's running. Well, how about Bo? Running at times. Yeah. And these aren't planned runs. I mean, these are runs where he recognized things, he thought about it, the check down wasn't there, and he takes off and he got 2 huge first downs. He ran 3 times, right? And 2 huge first downs. Those things, and people are watching film too, and they think, well, okay, he's not the rollout guy, he's not the running guy that he could have once been, but he isn't afraid. I mean, he did quip that he was afraid when he's actually doing it, that he might get whacked by Wynton McManus or somebody like that. But I think that is the real big key. And here's something else: the belief. When we go back to the belief and the fun, they had 3 times when they had to settle for field goals instead of touchdowns when touchdowns were there. One when they scored a touchdown on a penalty, another one where James Tuck drops the ball wide open, and the third when they had 5 shots at it from the 2. Okay, there's 3 times in a game is going to be right.
That one is still in everybody's mind.
That's 12 points. That's 12 points right there. And in a game that is not going to be decided by anywhere near 12 points because they haven't been. And yet they get that ball at the end. They were totally confident. Even if Chad had found the guy in the end zone who was open, if they'd found him, they still felt they were only down a touchdown. And they were confident, and I believe them. Yeah. Bo was so pumped. I don't know if you can hear it in his interviews after the game, but he was like, if you know Bo, who tries to keep a level keel, and he was, but that keel was up here.
Yeah. Well, and the most impressive part is we talked about it earlier, Luke, where it's really hard for an offense to drive down the field and get themselves into a scoring position. But what the Ticats are doing an awesome job at is actually driving down the field. The hardest part of the offense is what they're doing a really good job at, and keeping these long, sustained drives together. That game against the Argos last week should have, when you look back at it, should have been a blowout, right? They could not get the ball in the end zone, and to win with that many field goals, and Mark Leggio and what he did was great to know you have that. But that game should have been a blowout. There were so many opportunities for them to score touchdowns, and usually when you see a team struggle to get the ball in the end zone, it's a loss by quite a bit. And
that's the big difference here.
Yeah, this team's doing a really good job at getting big, long, sustained drives together. And those end zones, those touchdowns, those will come. But yeah, it's pretty impressive what Bo and company is able to do.
Can I bring up something about Bo on that one too that gets lost? So many great things happen in this game, and actually things that weren't great. That like it just really comes down to the last minute or two, and that's all of you kind of remember. But a lot of times after they'd get a turnover or something like that, or a big break or some field position, they didn't do anything with it. What happened on the very first play after Stavros Katsantonis' interception? Bingo.
Touchdown. Yeah.
Touchdown, right, to Robinson, and just a brilliant call. Now, that was Milanovic, but really, what a call. And what an execution, really, too, by both guys. That's not there earlier in the year. That is not there earlier in the year, and not with that player.
So a lot to follow up on there, Steve. You talked about Bo running. He's got 119 yards rushing this season. That's his most in a decade. In 2014, he rushed for a career-high 232 yards. So I don't know if he's going to get there, but 119 yards and key rushes, too. So that's been important for Bo. The other thing that really stands out, besides his statistics and not turning the ball over, is when he got the Ticats, or was a big part of getting the Ticats within a 48-yard field goal, and he was celebrating going off the field before Mark Leggio even was on the field. Bo was celebrating that this game was done. Then we talked to Mark Leggio in the postgame, and he was commenting about the turf and how that was a little bit iffy, and he was able to find a patch of grass that was actually pretty good to put the ball at. But just the confidence that Bo clearly had and the Tiger Cats clearly had. What does that do for a team, Luke, when you've got a kicker that from 48 yards, he's going to win you the game?
Yeah. I remember a really long, I think it was a 51-yarder with Justin Medlock, a walk-off field goal one year at Tim Hortons Field. It was sunny, and I can't remember. I think it was the last game of the season, or it was the game that finalized the playoff scenario, I think. But that's a huge event for a football team. I mean, I love that they had him up in the air, Leggio. They had him up. Guys were carrying him around the field and stuff, and he kicked it was a great kick, and Bo's confidence. I love that. I love that. It kind of shows the headspace of a quarterback, because I think an average watcher would think, well, that's not that great. I mean, it's kind of a long field goal, and it wasn't a touchdown or a great throw. I mean, he had good throws on the drive, but it wasn't like a spectacular thing. It shows like Bo knew exactly what he needed to do. It's like he had in his mind to start that drive. He knew he had to get to a certain yard line, and so getting it down to, I guess it was the 39-yard line. He had done his job. I mean, it's a very challenging thing to do. You've got a defense that is backs up against the wall. They're trying to play hard, and that's a very tough drive to orchestrate. And so, for him to be pumped up, to me, is like he knew it. Just is like football knowledge. Like, that is a big deal. To get that kicker into that situation, and so. Good for them. I mean, you can see all the confidence building, and I think Milanovic 2 weeks ago, I think in the Ottawa win, explained to us what he felt, that that he could sense that each unit has confidence in the other units out there. And I absolutely remember that as a player. The years where you're really I was really confident that Mike Daly or Simone Lawrence, Ted Laurent were going to make a play out there when I was on offense. Like, it just really felt like it was going to happen. Like, we're going to get back on the field real quick here. We got a 2-and-out, but the defense is going to go out there and get a 2-and-out, or Speedy's going to just bust a return here, and we're not even going to have to go on the field. So, there's confidence in those years, and then the inverse is definitely true. Where it's just like, oh, second and long, guys, like, I'm worried that the opponent's going to get it right now, because I'm seeing them get a lot of these, and so. That seems to be. I just think I liked Milanovic's perspective on that. It shows what a great player coach that he is, and because of his experience, feeling that energy, both the good and the bad. And now the Ticats have found the good side of it.
We've talked about some of the keys: fewer turnovers, fewer penalties, Bo not turning the ball over. Steve, how much of a factor are the BOveralls?
Well, more and more as they keep winning. Like,
So if somebody
he's under
doesn't-
great pressure not to change that, I would think. I mean, I don't know what your guys' superstitions were, but most players I know, if once you get on a winning streak, they don't change anything.
Yeah, just so all of our listeners and viewers know, Bo has been wearing overalls to the last 3 games. They've all been victories, so you'd have to think he's bringing his best overalls to BC, pack those up, and walk into the game with those. But
That's good.
Mike, do you have any stories? Did you have a superstition?
No, not really any specific superstitions, but I think it goes back to what Luke was talking about with the confidence thing, where it's just like, oh, okay, well, if Bo's wearing overalls, then we're going to win this game. Like, that's how it goes. So it becomes a team superstition. I guess my superstition was just making sure I had energy drinks because, to be honest, I'd get tired during games if I didn't have them. I'd be like, man, like, this is a long game. So that was my superstition. But that goes to show you what's coursing through this team right now. It's all it takes is a little bit of fashion from Bo to be able to pump this team up, right? And to Luke's point, when there's confidence, on the sideline, seeing like, okay, the defense will get a stop, okay, the offense will get this second down. The confidence within those each individual position groups too. So as a receiver, I'm sure they look and say, hey, Bo's playing unbelievable because he wore his overalls this morning. And I'm going to run my routes harder. I'm going to run, I'm going to make sure I stick my routes at, if it says 12 yards and he thinks I'm sticking at 12 yards, that's when I'm putting my foot in the ground, right? And I'm going to run that hard to win. He might not throw to me, but I'm going to run hard to win. In those teams that you don't have that confidence with, you'll get, and this is just off the top of my head, but probably 2 of those 5 receivers are going to, half run their routes because it's, we're not doing well. I'm probably not going to get the ball. And then that's when those stack on top of each other. Same thing that happens on the defense. So it turns from being, oh man, like hopefully I get one pass my way to, I don't want to be the guy to let the team down because of how well we're doing. So if that takes overalls, if that takes the same pair of underwear every day, if that takes, the same sweaty socks that are going on your foot, I don't care what it is, just keep it winning.
Boveralls.
The BOveralls. I wonder now, does Bo wish that like it could have been a sport coat or like something if he would have like had like some nice style and then they started winning, like now he's sort of stuck. A great hat. Now he's stuck with the overalls. So I wonder if that's in his mind.
Well, I'm sure they're not comfortable on a flight out to BC, so he's probably sitting there going, "Oh my gosh, I gotta wear."
Mike,
all the young people,
you unstrap the shoulders and then let them down on the flight. So
that's right.
You know what? I guess
all the young people here. There's a lot of young people working in this stadium, right, for the team, and they just think he's God for those overalls. And this was the first time before they actually won, and they saw him in them. So. There's a positive feedback there from even off the team.
Cool.
So when you say they're not stylish and would he rather wear a coat? Well, when you got a bunch of 23-year-olds saying, "Hey, you look really good in those overalls," it's kind of like us, it's positive feedback.
Yeah, I'm gonna go buy a pair of overalls. That's
what the heck?
See,
Sure.
Here they come.
Sure.
Well,
I will say.
I was just going to say, don't be surprised if Ticats win in BC. If the next home game on October 4th against Winnipeg, there's some Boveralls in the gift shop, and we see a few fans wearing them because
Denise in the Ticats store is going to start ordering Carhartt Boveralls.
Maybe Simone might be branding them right now as we
That's
speak.
very true.
So he's in the clothing line. So
I'm
not saying he is.
Luke?
I was gonna say I for the longest time I wore the same shirt all the way through Cornell, all the games, and with the Ticats I wore the same undershirt under my shoulder pads in games, and it was a Jim Kubiak went to my high school. He broke all the records at the Naval Academy. Really great quarterback, bounced around the NFL after, and a great guy. I know him now. He's still in Western New York, but it was the Jim Kubiak football camp from when I was in 8th grade, and I wore it underneath my shoulder pads for games like well into my career, and it's in I still have the shirt here, so that's kind of cool. I mean, I always thought about that and remembered it because it was sort of a childhood inspiration for me. But the best one is Jerry Glanville is legendary in the football world, NFL, and when he in the NFL and college, and when he came up here with June Jones on game days, he would wear a full length black like cowboy duster, like a Western jacket, that like for the High Plains drifter, black with a black cowboy hat. And one time I was sitting in the receiver room at Tim Hortons Field before meetings, was just me, and I was looking at my notebook, and Jared Glanville was walking down the hallway, and from my perspective I could see him, and he knew I love cowboy boots. RJ, as you know, I wear cowboy boots to most of our games in the booth.
Yep.
So he and we would talk about cowboy boots every now and again. And Jerry came down the hallway, and he looked at me, and he was giving me a nod. He put his finger on his lips like this, like in the be quiet, like don't say anything motion. As he got forward, he goes, "Luke, don't say anything, just look." And he put his leg, and he stomped his boot right on top of my notebook. And it was like a Texas bullhorn frog cowboy boot that he had for this week's game day. It was like it was very cool. It was like a exotic leather cowboy boot that he had chosen for that week's game. But that was something of a game day ritual that I thought was pretty legendary. Was the long duster and the exotic cowboy boots.
Yeah, that is. Mike, did you have any players that you thought were a little extreme with their superstitions?
There was a couple guys that I don't know who did it first. It might have been Deion Sanders, but they would lay out their entire jersey, helmet, pants, socks, cleats in almost what was like creepily when you would see a homicide and they would draw the little circle around the body. Well,
the chalk line, yeah.
It would be all of their equipment laid out like a player, and just for fun, I'll put it out there. Simone used to do it, and I sat pretty close to Simone, and I'd have to avoid this jersey and pants and cleats and gloves, like just laid out like a deflated human on the ground. And I was like this is really in the way here, but if this is what helps them get up and start hitting people in the mouth, then so be it. Lay them out there as much as you need.
Well, the Peter Diakowski and Giovanni Aprile, a Canadian wide receiver that was with us for a couple seasons, they would crush McDonald's before games. Peter would have multiple cheeseburgers before games.
And Peter Diakowski used to try to put on ABBA in the locker room.
Yeah.
That itself. Put on the soundtrack, ABBA, and everyone there is like, "Hey, Pete, like, we got to play a game. I can't be listening to ABBA. I know you might be able to, but we can't listen to ABBA. You got to get this thing off of there."
Well, for a while, Mike, interestingly, there's always the dichotomy of music in a football locker room because you have such a mix of cultures and players. And for a long time, we practiced White Boy Wednesday, which is where folks. There you go. Still goes on. So I'm sure there's your mix of country and rock, and then. But game days, Peter was removed from the game day set list.
Yeah, pretty quick.
That didn't last very long.
So back to the field, and 3 wins this season against the Argos, sweeping the Argos. Steve, is it just 3 wins, or does it mean a little bit more that they did beat the Argos 3 times this season?
Well, technically, RJ, one thing we have to look at is if they finished both at the same and they're tied for 3rd place, the Ticats get that's big.
Yeah,
that's really big, and it really actually puts a target on Toronto's back. It's too bad that Toronto had that great game against BC, or we would have been looking at a whole different thing, and maybe we are looking at a whole different thing now. Maybe are we looking at this? If Toronto had won in the fashion which it looked like they were going to win, essentially a last-minute victory for them, they would have won 2 in a row. Instead, they've lost 3 out of 4. Does that change things for them? A little bit. So that's part of it. And the fact is, they won the games in front of them. They won. They won by a total of 8 points, and that, however you slice that, you got 6 points in the standings off of an 8-point differential.
Yeah, close
Boy,
games.
that's something. And I think we said, I think a lot of people on our show this week, and I know Sal talked about it last week, it's tough to beat a team 3 times in a year, especially when you play them the second time in 3 weeks. And they did it. And against a team that, let's face it, kind of owned them for a couple of years. And I think that's really, really big. Now, okay, so maybe Toronto isn't the team they used to be, and they definitely are not. But they're still a really good team, and they have some really, really, really strong elements on all in all three phases. So I think the fact that how they did it, yes, it's against a division rival. They were must-win games. I mean, both games. I mean, they're absolutely must-win games. If they don't win that last game, essentially the Eastern playoffs are over for them, and we can say that now. But they're not over now. They're right there. So I think it was big that they beat them, and that it was against the Argos. And yeah, it's all against one team, basically 60% of their wins. But what the heck? You take the games that you take your wins where you get them, and they're getting them now in a row. And I think the fact that it's in succession, that's really big. That 2 out of those 3 came in a 3-game winning streak. That now, the role that they were hoping for, the role that they always said was coming, which in my heart, I wasn't sure it was going to come at all this year, and at least the role's here now. Whether it's too late, we don't know, but it's right there. This is a role. This is a serious role.
Might be right on time.
Might be.
Yep.
Yeah. How about time? 10:30 p.m. start. That'll be on Friday, so you don't want to miss it. Tiger Cats chance to win 4 in a row. Some big news off the field, which does help the Tiger Cats on the field this year and next year, is Jamal Peters. They extended him through 2025. Mike, you played in the defensive backfield. Jamal Peters, how good is he?
Yeah, he's a perfect combination for a DB. He's tall and lanky, so he can deal with those receivers that, like the Eugene Lewis's, even like a Shemar Bridges, right? Like those type of receivers that are the bigger bodied receivers. But he's savvy enough to have seen enough CFL offenses and know what's coming. I remember when we were playing against him, Dane had the hardest time with him because he would bait Dane, and you see it with each quarterback now, even this season. He would bait guys where he understands the play that's coming, he understands the quarterback's reads, so now he knows where to go make his play and where his play isn't. So that, on top of how physical he is and how well he can tackle and how aggressive he is, that's a great combination. It's the reason why he's an all-star. It's the reason why this Ticats defense looks completely different with him in the lineup and with him not in the lineup. He was the one that got the party started with the turnovers for the Ticats defense this season, and he continues to make plays. And I know everybody sees the interceptions, but watch throughout a game how many open field tackles he is making on running backs, on receivers. He completely eliminates that side of the field, and teams are scared to get even their best receivers on him in an isolation situation where it's 1 versus 1 and throw the ball to him, because it's more times than not interception. So to be able to lock up a boundary corner, and I think back to when I played, we had a guy named Delvin Breaux that everybody will remember. And our defense used to be, hey, if they go 1 receiver set to Delvin's side, we're going to load the field with all of our players. We're going to put so much zone over there. We're going to double a bunch of receivers on the field side, because nobody's going to beat Delvin. No matter what you do, you can run 1,000 routes on him. No one's going to beat him. They'll throw the ball up to him 1 time a game. He'll almost pick it off, or he will, and then they'll stop doing that. And that's what they have in Jamal Peters. And with that, you can call so much as a defensive coordinator, knowing that you can just leave that guy out there, take their best receiver away, and then flood the other zones. So it's impressive, and it's a good move by the Ticats to lock up somebody like that.
He's turned a zone into not a zone. Like, he's turned it almost into man-to-man, and that's what really good zone players can do, right? They get up to, so it looks, I mean, they're playing off a little bit, but not much, but he can come in tight and make it into not a zone, or he can play head up on the guy. And he's basically the guys that swing out, too. He's got his eye on the guy swinging out of the backfield. Now, I don't know, a lot of that comes to the defensive end that's dropping off, and he's made Talbert a much better player. This is a young player, and who had to learn the CFL, and that's a very difficult position, perhaps the hardest on defense to play. It can be the halfback on the short side of the field, because you're playing against either the number 1 or number 2 receiver in most sets. I realize the offenses are changing a lot quickly over, and they move everybody around now, but most of the time that's what happens, because it's a shorter throw. So I think it's made him a lot better player in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Those
Luke,
two guys together.
did it change how offenses plan when you go up against a defensive back who is dangerous at taking the ball away? Did you talk about that in your meetings?
Yeah, you certainly know that, or the inverse is certainly true. If you think there's a weaker part of their coverage that you can exploit, that certainly happens. A quarterback's still gonna progress through their reads, right? It's only 12 guys that can only be in so many places. What's certainly true though, I'm not a huge fan of wide receiver screens. I just don't like the success rate. To me, a wide receiver screen is a changeup. It's almost like you think about a trick play. It's like a total countering type of play. The reason that I think that is because they're hard blocks to make. The blocking receivers are blind to where the ball is, but the defensive backs can see that, and it's a really good athlete in open space that you're trying to block. And Jamal Peters, we've seen him so many times this year. Like, he takes a shot at the right time. He shoots a gap of, let's say, a wide receiver screen out to out around the numbers. He'll call it taking a chance. It kind of is. Like, you have to choose when you're going to shoot the gap. Are you going to miss? Are you going to miss to one side or the other of the the receiver of that screen when you shoot a gap on either side of the blocker? He just has the knack for it. He can do it very well. So it's a very hard player to block in the open field. And so he becomes a productive tackler, even though he's on the outside of the defense. He's like Daly said, I think he's got his speed and footwork is excellent, but that's kind of what all DBs are supposed to have. He has the length and the strength to become a much more challenging player to account for from an offensive perspective. So he just plays bigger than himself, and he's been. I think he was the first player on this defense this year when we were all saying why are they not getting any turnovers. He did have the first interception of the season, but he was the first player that I noticed he's really starting to take chances. He's really starting to say, I want to make this play. I want to change the game for the team, and so I'll risk some things because you have to. You have to. It's a game full of risk. There's risk everywhere, and so you have to take some. And he was a guy who he was part of changing the mentality of the team, the defense, I should say.
Yeah, 4 interceptions for Peters on the season. That's 2 off the league lead. He has 7 knockdowns. That's 3 off the league lead. So when they do throw in his direction, he's more often than not making a play. And coincidence or not, on the day he signs his extension, the Tiger Cats also sign his college roommate from Mississippi State, Cameron Dantzler, who has 37 games of NFL experience. So he's played in the NFL a lot, most recently with the Saints, and he's listed at 6'2", Dantzler is, but Jamal Peters was talking about him yesterday and said he said 6'3.5". So we'll have to get maybe a new measurement on the height of Cam Dantzler. That would be a really tall DB, but they're very close friends. They're both with the Tiger Cats now. We'll have to see when Dantzler can get into uniform. Just signed a day ago. Steve, you've seen him at practice. I don't know if you had a chance to talk to Dantzler yet.
I talked to him today.
He'll be a nice ad, won't he?
Oh, absolutely, and that's one of the when you talk about and that I like the way you led into this whole segment, RJ. When you talked about in the future, it'll help us well. I had asked Jamal after he signed on Friday. Do you think you can get other guys here? And I didn't know about Dantzler at the time, but that was obviously in the works. Getting a guy like that, he could have gone maybe anywhere, or maybe stayed down in the States to take another shot at it. But he was spoken highly. The Ticats were spoken very highly of by his former roommate. So that's the kind of thing that can happen, and it can happen to if the Ticats' future, meaning next year, is good enough for a guy like Jamal, then it's good enough for some other free agents to consider that too to come. That's been an influence. You saw that. That's why they try to sign guys, certain key guys early. All teams do, to help influence other free agents, not only around the league, but their own free agents. Hey, this guy believes. We should be believing too.
Yeah.
And I think that was an example of getting Cam up here. Now he's not going to play this week. He's got to figure a bunch of things out, and they're really working on him on a few things. And staying after practice, he stayed after practice Tuesday when I talked to him. And I think that it was no coincidence, RJ. You're right. It's no coincidence.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll spend a lot of time with Jamal as well, away from the field, and probably pick up a few pointers. And what a good guy to learn the CFL game from. Jamal Peters, again, re-signed with the Tiger Cats. We got to talk Shemar Bridges. He ended up breaking the Tiger Cats' rookie record for receptions in the last game. Now he's to 79. He broke Jalen Saunders' record of 76 set back in 2017. Luke, you were on that 2017 team with Jalen Saunders. 76 receptions for him, 79 for Shemar Bridges for a rookie. Put that into perspective for us. Number of receptions for a first-year player.
Yeah, that's difference making. You can have a lot of notable receivers, and if you look around the league and you think about the names that notable guys in each team's receiving room. A lot of those guys will have 40 catches in a year. Can be a productive season. I mean, you can do a lot of good for a team with that. So 70, up in the 70s, up in the 80s. That is a lot of production. And from a rookie, that's spectacular. You mentioned Jalen Saunders. That 2017, that was the year that we struggled so badly to start, and then ended up having. It was actually a fun finish to the year. We turned things around. We started having some production. We did end up missing the playoffs, but I do remember the last home game, that season ending, and Speedy and myself and Jalen, it was the first time the Ticats had 3,000-yard receivers in the same season, and Jalen was a rookie there with that kind of production. So it's difference making, and I, apart from the number though, I just can think back to so many Shemar Bridges catches this year that I thought, man, like that's really talented, not just in getting it done, but the body language, the route running after the catch. I've talked highly about him all year, and so I think it's another guy that I would look forward to being a Ticat in the coming years.
He's moved to fourth in CFL receptions receiving yards. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think it was with Mike, and then RJ, I think you brought this up last week, the different one guy would have a big game, the next guy, then the other guy. Mike talked about that on a pregame show before the Argo game, and part of it is guys like Shamar establishing themselves as somebody you've really got to pay attention to. So, yeah, maybe he doesn't get something. He only got a couple of catches, I think, in the Ottawa game. Was that the one? Where he had a little less action. You kind of wondered. Tim had the same thing, and Milanovic has always said, some guys just aren't going to get at some games because, A, somebody's hot and getting open, they found a weakness, but also there's only one ball to go around and everybody is doing a good job. So eventually your time comes. I mean, you saw that with Smith in this last game. He hadn't, where had he been? Suddenly there's two great ones, right? So because somebody else is having a good game, now you're looking off the safety a little bit to that guy. And I'm sure Bo was looking off the safety a couple of games to Shamar and went the other way because Shamar is such now a legitimate. And I think it's even better. As much as I love the way Jalen played that year, you're talking about a guy in Shemar Bridges who did not play high school football.
Mm-hmm. Right? It's wild.
It's insane. It's insane. Yeah. To have two receivers among your leading six that did not play high school football. There's something there that I don't even know who to credit for all of this, but somebody that landed this talent.
Yeah, and Steve
saw something.
The biggest thing too, like you mentioned, who's gonna, the defense looking one way or the defense looking the other. If it's Shamar doing well or Keandre, really what it is it's the confidence of the play caller. So the confidence of like Coach Milanovic and what he's willing to do, because there's a lot of teams that, for right or wrong, their coaches won't have a ton of confidence in every single receiver that's on the field. Or they'll look at certain receivers and say, you know what, you can only do this. You're a good check down receiver and we can add you into block, right? And that's all that we're going to ask you to do. And then defenses can get ready and prepare for that. The Ticats right now have multiple receivers. I'm thinking 5, even 6, that can do everything. It will be able to run those double move routes down the field. You saw Keandre in this last game, right? You saw the downfield balls to Shemar Bridges. He's not only a second down 5-yard catch machine, but they'll put it downfield. And Tim White, same thing. Get him something underneath, over the top. You saw it with Brandon O'Leary, Orange. Like, what is good about this Ticats offense is that Coach Milanovic trusts every one of these receivers to run different routes. So as a defense, you're sitting there saying, I remember being like, hey, these two guys over here, they're not running a route past 10 yards. So we're going to roll everything over. You can man those guys up. The coach doesn't even want to throw them the ball. I remember a couple coaches too. Luke, you'll remember this. I won't say any names. But there was a couple times where they would blitz and there would be hot routes. So as soon as you see, as an offense, you see people blitzing, you want to get the ball out as quick as you can to a receiver. You saw Stephen Dunbar take one at home. That was the one he took to the house because Bo got it out really quick. Well, there was a couple coaches that the quarterback would throw the ball on a hot route to one of the receivers, and I remember coach saying, don't you ever throw a hot route to that receiver again. And they used to say that stuff out loud on the sideline. So it just goes to show you the confidence that Coach Milanovic has in every single receiver that they're playing out there to run all those different routes. But that's a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
But look,
James Butler, too, ended up with
just gonna
6 catches and that big third down. Go ahead, Steve.
I was just going to say, you add that together. I'm glad you mentioned that, RJ, because the Butler, he gets out of bounds. Bo picked up 14 yards, and then he goes to Bridges. Like he thought maybe we could even try it even before Butler ran. Mm-hmm. Now he gets 8 yards out of Butler. Then he gets another 6 yards out of Bridges to the other side of the field, short and into a hole. Now it's 14 yards closer than it was, and I think it took him 9 seconds to do that. 10 seconds to do that. That's a kind of thing you don't always see in the stats. That's quarterbacking.
Yeah.
And that's play calling. That's play calling. Yeah.
Play call. When I was in the broadcast, I didn't know, I think that turf was even, makes it even more difficult on Legio than we could even, I think, see or imagine from there. Like it was a real factor in the kicking game. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know if they were going to go for the exceptionally long field goal at that, when they didn't get that second down to Shemar Bridges. Instead, they they felt they had enough time, which they did, to convert the third down, go for it. The game would have been over if that was incomplete.
Oh, sure.
And James Butler converts that and then makes the field goal into a makeable distance because it probably, I think there was going to be a 62-yarder or something exceptionally long like that I thought they were maybe going to be forced to attempt. But great, Scott. It's great game management. He knew he had the time, and he felt that it was worth the risk of going for it on third down.
Well, into a wind, Luke, that looked much stronger than it looked. That was much stronger than it looked on TV. Yeah. That was not a bit of a gamble. I mean, when they decided to take the ball and not take the wind in the fourth quarter, the wind didn't look like it was going to be a factor, and suddenly it was. It was definitely a factor, and it was gusting. And as you said, there was footing problems. Bo went down once. 3 Ticats went down on that field.
Well,
because it was so
Chad,
wet.
if you remember on that one throw
Chad.
where he missed Tavares, like the same thing. And Legio's foot did slip when he kicked that ball. So it was an issue, and it's frustrating that you can go into a stadium like that and it's that bad. Like I know as a player, that is so frustrating to be running a certain way, and then for a game you're like, what is going on here? What are they doing?
Yeah, they just the field was awful, and we talked about this again pregame about how bad it was. They just didn't touch it after the soccer game. The soccer played Wednesday night, and it was chewed up. They just didn't even look at it. I mean, and they wet it. It was just whoop. That field's already an advantage for the home field home team because of the way the turf is all set up. It's all weird. It's different in one end zone than the other.
The end zones are different, yeah.
They're very different, and so it really does. It's a home field advantage, and really it was the Ticats that took advantage of the non-home field advantage on it.
Yeah, I've called quite a bit of soccer, and they do water the field before, some with natural grass to have the ball roll a little bit truer. So it makes you wonder if maybe whoever was in the game maintenance area thought, oh, well, we just water the field before games and decided to do it. But we don't know the answer to that. But they definitely do water before soccer matches.
Yes,
receiving yards. Last time the Tiger Cats played BC, James Butler had over 100 receiving yards, which is pretty rare for a running back. And it was a 44-28 win for the Lions. That was back on July 7th. That was over early, that one. BC scored on their first 2 possessions, and it was not a fun one for the Tiger Cats. BC just put it on cruise control. Is it safe to say, Mike, that the Tiger Cats are a much different team now going into Friday's game than they were in that first meeting against the Lions?
Absolutely, yeah. It's the confidence level is different. What stood out to me most about that first BC game was just how fast BC got started, right? And now this is not a problem for the Ticats. At that point, they were such slow starters. They didn't look ready to play any games when they got out in the first quarter. But this Ticats team that we've seen over the past 3 games, that's a completely different story. They get out there, they're ready to go, they're fired up, they're excited, they're confident. So it's for BC, and to be fair, it's two completely different teams that are playing than that first game, because you're going to see Nathan Rourke out there, which is a different look than Vernon Adams. This Ticats team is playing a lot different than what they did in that first BC game. So I'm curious to see how this goes, because if you look at similar opponents, Toronto just took it to BC. BC looks like they're struggling offensively to really put some things together. And the Ticats are completely opposite. They're the ones that are figuring it out right now. So, we always talk near the end of the season, it's the hottest teams that end up winning. I do still believe the Ticats are the hottest team in the CFL. So if they can get out early and quick on BC, especially out west, this game hopefully will be over sooner than later, unlike the Argos one last week.
4 straight games where the Tiger Cats have just allowed their opponents a field goal in the first quarter. No touchdowns allowed. So you're right, Mike. They're getting off to much better starts. We've joked already in Ticats this week about a 10:30 start. It is late. Luke, does it affect players who are used to the Eastern time zone?
I don't know. And Milty, I don't know if you've heard yet when the team is traveling out there, but we did it different ways each year. Or at different times of the season, where you go out either on the day 3 practice and you fly that night, and that gives you an entire day out west before game day.
They are going on Thursday, Luke.
Okay,
yeah,
so
we're going Thursday about 10:30 in the morning, which is a little earlier than normally they would go.
It is.
Within the day. But yeah, I wondered too. I thought maybe they'd go a Wednesday, and I'll be with them Wednesday night, but they decided Thursday morning.
Thursday morning, so they'll just get the one night sleep out west before the game. It can make a difference. I always found I was very nervous about it, getting ready for that game. But I always found that the day is very long getting to the game, but once the game starts, I never thought about what time it was or what time it was back home, or I didn't feel that the weight of what I was so nervous about, all the tiredness, other than apart from usual sort of exhaustion. But I think once the ball snaps, I think BC Place is a great venue, and I always liked playing there. I can remember a lot of good games. So I tend to want to say I don't want to overthink that late start for the players. For us, RJ, wow! I mean, it's heroic even that we show up. So
it's the right word.
Yes, yeah. So that'll be tough. I am worried now for my own responsibilities as a non-player for this game.
Yeah, Luke.
Lots of coffee.
Luke, I'm with you too. If I see 11 o'clock on the clock before bed, I'm a mess the next day. But playing, yeah, I'm with you. You'd go out there. The worst part was just before the game, so it didn't really matter what time it was, just because it's such a long time until you kick off. But I don't remember, as soon as that ball's kicked off, I mean, you're so jacked up and things are going so quick. And, I had energy drinks. Guys would have pre-workout stuff. Some guys would just have coffees. Some wouldn't. Some wouldn't have anything. But once the ball gets kicked off, you don't think about anything like that. And really, after games, you can't sleep because you're so jacked up anyway from the game. So there's no real energy loss for the players. But yeah, Luke, see 11 o'clock on the clock, and I turn into a pumpkin. So
yeah,
we'll be ready to go. We'll be battling.
Look forward to a riveting halftime show from Mike Daly and Bubba.
I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm not sure it's gonna add to the rest, but they're trying to do some things that don't take a lot of energy from the players this week. One of which is go to one fewer practice. They have one less formal practice than they normally would have, because they want to say to the players, you need to sort of rest your body a little bit. We're not going to rest our minds, because you're going to do a lot of thinking in meetings and all of those kinds of things. But that's part of it. And the other thing is that unlike most places, they're staying really close to the football stadium, right? You're staying downtown. The football stadium's downtown, so it gives different players who need different things. Some like to get there really, really early, and but the ride isn't as big. They can choose when they do it. There's a whole different kinds of opportunities they can get for pregame rest. Now, I don't know if you can save up rest or not. It's more you need it afterwards. But I think those are about the most that they can do. They've traditionally done okay there. I'd be a little worried. The one thing I get worried about if I'm a Ticat supporter is the noise in BC Place right now. It's always been a really, really noisy place. Historically, this year they've had trouble with when it's been really, really noisy. They've had at least one time count violation, and I think both games where they had the noisiest, they had two, and so the silent count is really, really important. And you don't get it. Those are the kinds of things that provide home field advantage.
I'm worried about a punt hitting the score clock again.
That's
all right.
That happens now.
Yeah, a couple of times this year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm RJ Broadhead, Luke Tasker, Mike Daly, Steve Milton. We've had a great chat on Ticats this week, but one key from each of you on Friday's game against BC. Steve, go ahead.
Stand back, stop the run, and do that. And I said the same thing last week about Carey, and I think that's the most important thing. And then you change the way the quarterbacks play the game.
Mike?
I'm going to channel my inner Andy fan too and say you got to stay on the positive side of the turnover battle. It's been what's been helping them down this winning stretch, and I think that's got to keep being a key, because this defense is stepping up and this offense has shown that they can drive fields, and that's the only thing that'll hurt them right now.
Luke?
You got behind early in the previous BC game, and you could never claw back. And now you're out west, and you have to start fast, to me. And they've started doing that. And they were miserable starts at the beginning of the season. Now they've started playing really solid first quarters, and I think they need to do that again at BC Place.
All right, and let's go BOveralls. Let's see what what Bo's got going into the game. Thank you so much for joining us on Ticats this week. 9:30 pregame with Bob O'Neill and Mike Daly, and Luke Tasker and I will have the call of the game at 10:30 Eastern Time. The way the Ticats are playing, who cares what time the game is? You have to watch, listen, ticats.ca/listen, and they're going for a fourth straight win in BC. Ticats and Lions coming up on Friday.
This has been the Ticats This Week, built by Turkstra. Whatever your next home project is, build it better with Turkstra. Visit TurkstraLumber.com today. Like and follow the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast content, and get a deeper understanding of your Hamilton Tiger Cats.